great. I have a bit of a habit of walking around when doing these presentations, so I'm going to try and keep my feet firmly anchored to the floor. So we've got the 12 o'clock session running slightly late, but I hope everyone is suitably caffeinated as we go into the final session before lunchtime. Really enjoyed those discussions so far. What a wonderful segue from the panel discussion. I've been told to get close to the mic. What a wonderful segue from the panel discussion before about technology and the fact that it really needs to be an enabler and it's not just something that you pull out the toy box. So we're from KAPPTURE. We're a company that's headquartered in Derby in the middle of the UK, and we also have offices over in Galway. That's where our R&D hub is, and that's where our Frictionless store was born. So if you've not heard of us, we operate globally. We deliver our EPOS and related solutions to stadia and sports venues. That's why we're here. And we work with a number of Premier League and other Football League clubs. We work with rugby clubs, horse racing venues up and down the country. We work in higher education, and we support many of the Tier 1 contract caterers. So we'll take you on a short journey around frictionless technology, the challenges of demand, how frictionless stores can form part of the solution, so picking up with the discussion that we've just had, and considerations in making your choices. And there might be a bit of a kind of shameless plug in there for our own solution as well, but we'll try and keep it balanced. So who are us two? Firstly, well, I'm Paul Moskwa. I'm CCO at KAPPTURE. I've been with the business about 3 months now, so I'm new to the industry. I've always been vendor side when it comes to SaaS technology companies. The last kind of 12, 15 years or so have been in HR and payroll vendor side, and then construction software. But this, and what we do and the challenges that we exist to solve really resonates with me. So, I mean, I'm a sports fan. If I tell you I support Nottingham Forest, you'll probably question that statement. Well, someone's got to, haven't they? And I'm also an avid concert goer. So I see it from the other side, and for me, it's tangible, it's real, and it's really exciting. What I'll do now is introduce Fraser. So Fraser has joined us in the past month or so. Now, what's really interesting and a great score for us is that Fraser is from your industry, and has very real-world experiences of the challenges that we're here to solve. I'm not going to do too much talking for him, but we'll get straight into the challenges aspect of the presentation and hand over to Fraser.
Thanks, Paul. Am I going now? Yes. Okay. So yeah, just as Paul alluded to, I've only recently joined KAPPTURE in the new sales team, but this is, okay, not Blackburn or Bournemouth where I'm going to talk about now, but this is what I'm used to. This is my arena. I've spent the last 9 years in football across the Premier League and the Championship, both with AFC Bournemouth, where that was between two leagues, and with Blackburn Rovers, who obviously former Premier League champions. The two are very different, and my responsibility was revenue generation and fan engagement across marketing and commercial remit. So I've seen a lot of the operational side, and with both clubs at varying levels of success during those times, it's how you scale that and how you work with what you've got at each individual time to then sort of build a bigger picture for the future. I think one of the key things with KAPPTURE is it's all about trying to support our clients and venues in how we overcome the challenges that we've all talked about already today, and how we make the experience more seamless for customers and fans, and how that then benefits in the background from a business perspective. So this quote here, and again, it's been talked about already this morning and at recent events that I've been to as well. It's all about expectation. I think not only the sports industry, but the entertainment industry, I think when you look at the way we shop on the high street, the way we shop online, the expectation of us transacting is going up. And we have to match what the fans, the customers, the clients are expecting from any of those areas. It's not just what they expect from sport or what they've expected for the past 50 years, but it's what they expect in any remit. So what we're trying to do at KAPPTURE is to give the fans a better experience, match those expectations, and allow them to enjoy what they've really come to the venue to do, which is to watch the sport, watch the artist, and to engage rather than stand in queues, like we've already discussed. So in terms of those expectations, and I think it's, you can see there that's a tremendous show that's being put on, but we have to put a show on as well. And it's not a show that is overt, it's not a show that is something that maybe you would see as a customer, but it's got to be that seamless and sort of unintrusive show. So all of the technology that we can provide, you'll have seen plenty of it from various different vendors in every venue that you've ever been in, but it's how can we be unintrusive and make that experience better and allow fans to experience what they want to experience, which is the action on the pitch. And I think that is, the challenge that we're all facing and that we've discussed. And Paul will talk you through maybe a little bit about how we can solve that challenge.
Great stuff. Right, I'll get closer to the mic. Yes, thank you very much, Fraser. So what's the solution? Well, frictionless stores. Now, that's slightly tongue-in-cheek, especially given what was discussed in the last panel. It's one of a number of solutions. So I'll kind of give you the headlines first, talk about what we've got to offer and our experience, and then we'll come on to, well, what are the elephants in the room around frictionless stores. So here's a concept video of our solution. It's called BRISK. Really simple. This is a 7-meter rig. So as a fan, you kind of walk up, you've got your turnstiles. It's very similar to all the solutions out there, we must say. Tap your card or your phone, go through, take a drink, and walk out. I would almost said just walk out there, and I better be careful. So at the end of it, there's a QR code, and you can scan that to get a receipt. And the idea behind this is ultimately we can manage the entire transaction and complete it within the footprint of the unit. And the word footprint will feature through this presentation, because what we've got that's unique is the ability to manage that within that box. So all of the processing power is in the box. All of the transaction management is in the box. And as we've just passed it now, this is on loop, so it'll come back round again. As you walk in, there is someone on the left-hand side. They would usually be the person responsible for Challenge 25, because we can't discharge our legal obligations to technology. They will also be able to administer the system. So they're able to, if there ever was an issue with any transaction, go back and correct it. If they've spilt a drink and you want to give it them free and send them back around, that can all be sorted. So you don't get anyone leaving the store and then challenging later. It's all done there and then. And so from a guest experience perspective, what's it about? Well, speed. So it was mentioned earlier on that it was a 35-second kind of transaction time. Now, this isn't a PB, and this is kind of realistic testing. We can get people through our solution in just 8 seconds. So if you take a really wide context and you don't ask me too many questions around it, we can technically say that we're faster than Usain Bolt. Now, he may be faster going through our frictionless store, but I would hazard a guess he's definitely going to spill his pint. What that does from a revenue perspective and a return on investment perspective, we reckon it's about 4.5 times sales with our solution. So moving from a typical bar doing 600 drinks an hour to 2,700 an hour. So that reduces queuing, of course, enables spontaneity, especially when faced with a potential queue or not. You'll go and grab that pint, and also helps at half-time in particularly football, where your choice might be go to the toilet or get a drink. So I shan't repeat the 3 Ps that are now becoming a thread through this morning, but as Brian said, solve the toilet problem and you've made it. Sadly, I can't tell you that we've solved the toilet problem either. So delivering a better fan experience and improving revenue, I mean, that's definitely worth drinking to. So if you're thinking ROI, we reckon there's a 97% staff saving on average per drink sold. So that's a conventional bar versus frictionless technology. That's your labour saving, in optimal conditions admittedly, but it does take people away from non-value add roles where the transaction of just serving drinks is not necessarily an improvement to the customer experience. And you combine that with increasing revenue, this is kind of the start of that return on investment journey, because these are expensive concepts. But it's also a contributor to increasing effectiveness in your operations, as Fraser mentioned earlier. But what does this mean from a data perspective? So it's been mentioned that it's all about the data and the outcomes. Absolutely. We're in an outcome-driven game here. How do you become more effective? So Robert was right just earlier. Data is indeed the new oil. You've got to collect it, store it, and then monetize it, as has also been mentioned this morning. And ultimately, you need actionable insights for data-driven decisions. One watch out is to look at the integration that your frictionless store has with your EPOS system. How integrated is it, and do you get that holistic view? From our perspective, these are our heat maps in our back office solution, and frictionless stores can be monitored in terms of their peaks and troughs of demand, and therefore the most effective resource deployment for your people, the same as any concession, any individual stand, or drilling down any kiosk, till, or payment device. So a potential 97% reduction in labour. Fraser, in the world you've come from, do you want to talk about your experiences?
Yeah, I think, obviously revenue generation, and whether that's, cutting your costs or increasing your revenue, that's really key to any business, whether they be a sports team or a venue itself. And I think this graphic here brings data into the equation very, very nicely. I think from some of the stuff that we were looking at in industry, and I think a lot of clubs are looking at now, is how do you create this sort of single customer view? How can we understand the customer from the point of purchase of a ticket, maybe some interaction on social media through digital channels, that then spills into a match day, going into the retail store, coming onto the concourse, utilising a lounge maybe, and then leaving the stadium and exiting via public transport or car parks. So that whole journey and that single customer view is something that we really strive to support, and I think integrations with other partners, again, partnerships being key, allows you to do that, allows you to understand your fan, understand your venue, and from there you can then make decisions strategically to try and enhance, like we said, revenue generation, efficiency, and ultimately creating a better experience. Great, thank you very much. So how does the tech work then? Bit of an overview for you. So here's a view from one of our cameras. We have 8 cameras max, and that's in our 10-metre store. You can see the people tracking here as they mingle and bump into each other, and there's not a break in the consistency of that tracking there. At some point they'll they won't take all of their clothes off, but jumpers are being taken off, drinks are being swapped between people. We're trying to break this, and at some point someone starts even stacking cups. Everything is tracked, and seriously, our accuracy levels we are delighted with. And I'll jump straight into some numbers, because you can see this, and you've probably worked out for yourself how the technology works there. So from a numbers perspective, 1 million. Now that's the number of frames that we've got at the moment. So we've got just over 1 million frames from the computer vision model, which to combine to create an image of a person. And I'll come on to that very shortly, because that's quite important when it comes to what is that image and what does that mean for an individual. 99.7% is the accuracy. That's a combined accuracy level, including trying to cheat. And that does include our development team sat on the floor with a load of others playing Ring a Roses around them. It's accurate even in that scenario, developers, hey? And then 100%. That's our guest tracking accuracy, so absolutely nailed on. It's not a rounded up figure, it's 100% in and out. No break in the tracking of any individual. So here's another, this is a computer model, so this is some of the training that we do for our computer vision. Now, I mentioned the labelling, and that we've got over 1 million kind of frames of which to build labels with. It's a unique way of identifying people. So Brian in the last discussion mentioned that authentication now replaces recognition, which makes fans more comfortable, and I absolutely agree with that. The same applies to the comfort around their data and anything that's personally identifiable. And of course, being within the UK and the EU, we are bound by GDPR.
we don't make a biometric signature of anyone. We don't capture any data that is otherwise known as personally identifiable. So we're outside the realms of GDPR there. And we think that that's pretty unique. This video never, unless you specify it to, never leaves the footprint of the solution. You can take snapshots, which will automatically blur faces, which will go into the back-end system if you ever wanted to in the event of any challenge. But the idea is, it doesn't really need to leave the system because everything is administered within the footprint. So, the solution, frictionless stores. Same section divider as before, but now with a question mark on. So, look, hands up if you've either been involved in delivering or you've currently got a frictionless store. Okay, so there's a few. Great. Hands up if you're considering a frictionless store. I was hoping that the balance would tip in that way, actually. So how are you doing with your business case? Are people buying into your vision? How's that going? You can give us a nod or a shake. It's going well? Fantastic. Well, look, we'll give you, outside of the kind of pitch for the KAPPTURE solution, I mean, clearly these aren't a silver bullet, these frictionless stores, as has been well covered, but we'll give you some of our considerations. So the first thing is, I mean, what's that? It's an elephant in a room, isn't it? And there's a couple of those. One was mentioned in the previous panel. So the elephant is very relevant, and that wasn't a deliberate rhyme, just because they're quite big. And one of the challenges for these stores is space. In the UK and within the EU, we don't tend to have massive concourses within our stadia. You've got the kind of pitch of the seats, which limits how far you can go into and underneath them. And when we're talking a 3 metre plus kind of height, it is a problem. So you need to think about the impact that the footprint of your frictionless solution is going to have. You know, is it going to butt out into a concourse? Is that then going to cause you issues from a capacity, health and safety, kind of fire evac perspective? You know, key considerations here. Will you be retrofitting? That can sometimes be a bit scary. Or are you going to go greenfield, which is great if you've got the opportunity to, but I mean, that for some that's a long way off in terms of, you know, a much wider and bigger project. The second elephant in the room is ROI. So as Robert mentioned, you know, the rush to having all the toys doesn't necessarily always make sound business sense. It's a typically high cost of entry to get into frictionless stores, of course, with the associated civils, the project management, the hardware, the software, the connectivity overheads. And if your sports venue holds 20 games a season, you might be looking at getting to European football if you're at a football stadium. How then do you get more out of your solution? So it's definitely a strategic decision, and in alignment with better sweating of your assets with, you know, other kind of other events such as concerts, as is very popular. It is something that can help align with existing experiences. Vicky mentioned right at the start around kind of evolving and still retaining those fan rituals, and they're around every sports club, absolutely. And how's your people flow? You know, going back to the point around concourses, how does that work from a queuing perspective? Are you going to lift and shift a queue and move it somewhere else? Or are you going to entirely replace existing technology? In our experience, if you don't, you probably get people going to what they're familiar with and they like the best. So here's some kind of implementation scales just to help you. This is a retrofit we're looking at the moment. This is a lower ceiling height than 3 meters. And you can see actually it's quite a tricky one. It's in an existing bar, and we've got I-beams to navigate, we've got structural pillars, and they're not going anywhere. But you can see it's quite a nice user journey in from the right-hand side. That's where your Challenge 25/System Administrator is, and you go through and you come out the other end. What we can also do is outside. So where you've not got the room inside, why not take it outdoors? We've got the option for a semi-permanent structure. So it's got a 5-year lifespan to take the best of the British weather can throw at it, which is, you know, pretty extreme. And imagine that in your fan zone. I mean, what a great opportunity to get fans to you before the game, stay around after the game, and take a bit of that pub traffic away and get them spending money in your venue. That depends on capacity, of course, and there are other restrictions around it, but a great way to entice fans there early. If I could have found a bridge that had 2.6 meters on it, I would have gladly put it up. I'm not that good at Photoshop either, so this will have to do. But just coming back to the fact that size is a challenge, concession ceiling heights are a limiting factor. We've managed to get our ceiling height down to 2.6 meters, down from 3. So that might be a key consideration for some of you, and that will be ready in January next year. And how about sustainability then? So we've heard about sustainability this morning. There's sustainability on in the next session. And Peter, when he kicked off, reminded us all of our obligations. So look at it through the tech lens. Digital technology accounts for 8 to 10% of energy usage globally and about 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. To put that into perspective, and given that livestock was also mentioned, livestock only accounts for 5%, and that's seen as a massive problem. Of course, deforestation is taking away, I think it was 12% of our forests in recent times, but the tech burden is massive on the environment. So we at Capture, and all of us, have a responsibility to develop and deploy responsible and sustainable, which is clearly easy for me to say, technology into our solutions. So consider what you're looking at now. Is it a sustainable solution? How long is it going to last? What's the associated infrastructure and carbon footprint around it? Do you need power-hungry cloud computing, server rooms, lease lines for your internet? Does the unit itself consume a lot of power? And what will that do to your sustainability aims? We've designed our solution with this in mind, so there's no need to kind of fire up the auxiliary nuclear power with our BRISK solution. So infrastructure is big. It was discussed this morning when it comes to sustainability. Some considerations for you, as I've just mentioned. So servers, some solutions will crunch the data in the cloud. Some will do it locally in a server room within a set distance from your frictionless store. That's an overhead in space and power consumption, of course. I mentioned footprint earlier on. Our solution, it works entirely within its own footprint. No requirement for server rooms, no requirement for fast and expensive internet. So we work off a regular broadband connection, and I do mean kind of regular. You don't even need fibre to the cabinet. We can work on copper if needs be. And like everything Capture, we work entirely offline. As I said, we don't send video anywhere. We don't send it within the EU, and we certainly don't send it outside of the EU. And Katie told us this morning to be more mosquito. That was the sentiment of the phrase. And we take our obligations to sustainability very seriously. You don't get a free fridge freezer in your BRISK unit from us, but because we don't need really heavy-duty servers, no server rooms, we're not reliant on cloud computing, and everything is done within the unit itself. Due to our unique proprietary software and hardware, and the pitch will end soon, I promise you, it's important to let you know that our store consumes 150 watts of electricity when it's in full use. That's it. You go to Currys and you look at an A-rated fridge freezer, it's more than 150 watts. And that's pretty unique in the market, and it's all within our own footprint. So BRISK is fully integrated within the Capture platform and our existing reporting suite, including the heat maps, as I mentioned earlier. That's the computer vision, it's the AI. It genuinely is all contained within the footprint of the unit, guys. And our commercial model is quite different to some of the other providers in that we recognise the high cost of entry, and so we're working to a price point that might actually surprise you and help you with those incremental gains in your tech and bringing that return on investment. And finally, and I will hand over to Fraser in a second, his legs have probably gone numb standing there. When it comes to owning the success of the solution, that's all on us. We're a trusted partner. You heard that in this morning's kind of discussions around being a partner. We genuinely are. So it's entirely our solution, our technology stack. We don't rely upon anyone else. And if you want to put it bluntly, we're one throat to choke on the solution from cradle to grave. We'll lead the journey, we'll project manage it, and that includes your internal teams when it comes to retrofits. And we'll ultimately try and help your fans experience more. There'll be no kind of pointing suppliers at each other. So I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm going to hand back to Fraser with a bit of expertise. And Fraser, in the last kind of 5 minutes or so, your views on the future of frictionless stores and the opportunities?
I think first and foremost, it's getting frictionless right. I think it's fairly new to a lot of us, and I think getting the food and beverage part of it nailed for your GA fan is probably where it needs to be at the moment, and making sure that enhances the experience and not sort of overcomplicates it. But I think obviously we've got a couple of outdoor venues here. I think outdoor is going to be massive across festivals. I think people want to be in and out, and waiting in a queue at a festival can be the bane of all of our lives at times. I think two of the other main use cases that I've come across with conversations within the industry, retail merchandise, having a small selection of I suppose, maybe either high-ticket items or high-margin items available to sort of get people in and out. If it's a football stadium, for example, getting a rack of shirts and allowing people to just go in and pick up what they think they need. I think that's really key, and if you could pair the two up, and I think this is probably not far away, I think if you could pair up merchandise and F&B, I think that would obviously cut queues in a number of areas. I think one final one, touching on more premium experiences, is around different premium offerings, and could you actually have a BRISK store with a sort of buffet style selection of premium dishes, and you buy a package, but that package is tailored to your taste on the day. You don't have a set menu that you're buying into for that weekend's game or that event. You are buying a package and you choose on the day, and it's halfway between a premium and a buffet sort of style. So I think that's hopefully where it goes, and I think obviously, like I said, we need to get the basics right first and ensure that the experience is enhanced for your general GA fan on an F&B basis. But yeah, I think there's exciting opportunities within the space.
Great, wonderful. Thanks again, Fraser. So festivals, absolutely a key area for us. We did 14 festivals from an EPOS perspective this year. We're looking at putting BRISK out into the festival fields next year. Really excited about that, and the reason we could do it is because, and I'm labouring the point now, but our solution genuinely operates within its own footprint, and you can pull, much like every KAPPTURE product, you can pull the internet, and we can work entirely offline. So thanks very much for your time, guys. Really appreciate it. Do come and see us on stand 19. The door next to us blew open earlier, and our stand fell down, but we've remedied that, and we look forward to seeing you there.